Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Stacy Shoemaker-Rowan, Editor-in-Chief of Hospitality Design Magazine and the Senior Vice President of the Design Group here at Emerald. It's exciting to talk today about something we all quite need often these days, a creative jolt. And we brought together 4 amazing presenters to talk it through. Last year, you heard me say this over and over, and I will say it again. We are concerned for each of you and our entire hospitality community as we are still dealing with COVID-19. And we are all in this together. With vaccines and masks, I'm optimistic we can stay healthy, reopen, and rebuild hospitality and see each other in real life soon. So before I introduce our amazing speakers, we have a few housekeeping notes, which I'm sorry if you have heard me say these before, but here we go. First, we broadcast audio via the internet. So if you see this slide but can't hear audio, please check that your audio is on, unmuted, and the volume is adjusted. If you have problems receiving audio, click on the question mark and select Test My System Now. And sometimes just disconnecting and rejoining the webcast will improve your audio. Also, in this entire format will be, well, first the presenters will present and then we'll have a full Q&A. So please submit questions. You look for the Ask a Question box to enter and submit your questions and comments. And you can also ask about technical issues here and you will receive immediate answers from our producers. So that's it. So let's get to our amazing group of speakers. First, we have Christine Gachot, who's principal of Gachot, Matthew Goodrich, who's founder and principal of Goodrich, Mishi Jigarjian, who's partner and social impact officer at 7G Group, and last but not least is Mavis Wiggins, managing executive and studio creative director for TPG Architecture. As I mentioned, we've asked each of them to give their inspiration and outlook and aesthetic and cultural shifts and trends affecting design now. So they will take center stage one by one in alphabetical order to keep it easy, and then we will open it up to the Q&A. So as I said, please keep your questions coming in. So first, let me turn it over to Christine. Christine, you're up.
Hi, Stacy. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. You know, it's so nice to be asked this question and have a moment to actually reflect on the past year and creative process and to give us all a creative jolt. I think that we all need one. You know, I've got some images to share, and some of them are, you know, they are from the past and the present, and hopefully inspire a little bit in the future. So we can bring those up. Ooh. I don't know where my images are. Let's see. Oop. Sorry about that. Oops.
Just click the slides button. Slides on the upper left.
Oh, got it. Upper left
Of your screen, you see video bridge, slides, and then layout.
Yeah, I'm not able to. Oh, there we go. Got it.
Good.
Sorry about that.
No.
Okay. So with, you know, reflecting on Women's Day just passed us, and one of the first images, I keep a pin board behind me at work, and one of the first images that really inspired me as a young designer was Katie Lang getting a shave from Cindy Crawford. And it was really an anthem to so many people. But for me personally, it was a simple sentiment. It was the idea of, I can be that guy in the room. I can have that job. I can throw on a suit. I can go in and have a voice. T Magazine just did a wonderful feature, you know, in their men's spring issue of a young woman on the cover. And when I picked it up, it was just so reminiscent of that moment that I felt when I saw Vanity Fair back in the 90s. And where women are, you know, going and where we've been and having that real voice, right? It's become more apparent recently, thankfully. But there was an ad campaign from the 90s, Donna Karan, and she had this kind of sentiment of "In women we trust." And then, that led me to thinking about recent events and Kamala Harris and that diversification and that voice that she's really brought to the forefront for all of us. And that, that sentiment that's being put forward in advertising and in media, that there is representation on every level for us all, is been a great source of inspiration recently. And bringing that into the idea of community, and that, the living room concept, and that we, creating these spaces that are in hotels that are a center for the community to enjoy, not just for our guests and not just for the people that are visiting us, but really being a part of the local community, bringing in that idea of what you can give back as a hotel, having it not be about the trying to get in or the velvet rope, and having that sentiment of understanding what it means to be a member of the team at large. And that really led me to think about art and that expression. When I was at Bellage, we did an installation of KAWS on the plaza. And it was one of the first ones that was of large scale. It was for the neighborhood. It lent us to the conversation of, how do you engage? How do you give back? And it went from putting KAWS out there for everyone to see and to celebrate, to installing a skating rink on the plaza and for children. And that led us to an outreach of the community. It led to hosting classroom field trips. We did Highline tours to talk about how we built the hotel. And so I do think that bringing that experience and being a good neighbor is paramount in our industry, for sure. And with that idea of, having that real idea of hospitality and experience, the mini bar, I bring it into our residential projects. I am a lover of curating the experience and tapping into local purveyors. It gives people a sense of travel. You get to experience things on a very small level that you normally may not. My favorite minibar experience is the Greenwich Hotel. I write performance for hotels, and I know that they bake into my room rate the minibar, but the idea that there's not really a financial transaction is it makes it special. And I love everything from the home craft cocktail to the Charleston Chew. And Stacy and I had, during COVID, we judged the Hospitality Awards. And there was a project that really came forward and stood out to all of the members very, very easily. And that was the Trunk House in Japan. It's not an Airbnb experience. It is a small home, 70-year-old geisha house. It is, it has the smallest disco in Japan. It comes with a chef and services, housekeeping services, and all of the amenities, right, that you would want in a hotel. But it's your own little like private hotel, if you will. And I think that idea of experience is really where people are going and moving forward with. Auto Camp is, they've just done such incredible things during COVID, and I think it will continue. The idea of glamping, I think, has been out there. But what they're doing, what they're offering, it's so incredibly special. And they are really getting that generation that's spending money on experience, on doing, on seeing something, on learning something new. And of course, the idea of being outdoors, that's been just, incredibly satisfactory and help during this time period. But I also think that, we've all kind of discovered something about ourselves. We are thankfully no longer, tied to our desk, if you will. And that creative jolt, that idea of getting out and doing instead of, being strapped down, I think that those experiences are going to be come to the forefront. During COVID, we've seen a lot of golf has come back in. And what's interesting to me is the idea of sport as wellness. Not as a vanity, but really as a physical activity. Again, getting out, doing something new, and learning, and getting your mind working in a different way, almost like learning a different language. I've had many friends call and many colleagues and say to me, "Sorry, I'm going to be an hour late. It snowed this morning. I'm going to hit the slopes." And that idea of working remotely, I think, is very, very, on all of our minds moving forward, and what that means to the travel industry. That goes for warm weather too, surfing for sure. I'm sure Michi's gonna hopefully talk about that a little bit more. We're doing a private club in Barbuda right now, and they're kite surfing and they're getting out into the outdoors. And I think that wave of the future of travel, that idea of experiential thought process is really going to be coming to the forefront after all of this. A good, I think, source for me, or a lovely kind of movement forward, but a step back in creativity, has been the library. And seeing people, I think we all have a bit of screen fatigue, and I hate to say that today. We're on a wonderful panel and learning about people, but I have noticed in my own studio that people are taking out books again. And I appreciate the platform of Pinterest and how wonderful that is, and it works out. But we're all kind of dipping into the same pond sometimes, and a lot of repeat images. So getting back into that process of opening a book, tagging the image, scanning it, there's something really intimate about that idea. So that's been a great source of inspiration for myself and our whole team.
Well, thank you, Christine. That was amazing. I loved all your images. And as a magazine editor, I love the idea of tagging and opening a book. So thank you. So much to talk about what you shared, but we'll hold it for the end. So next up is Mr. Matthew Goodrich. So Matt, I will turn the slides over to you, which do seem a little jumpy, but Matt, all you.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for
You're on mute, Matt. Nope, there you go.
Okay. It wouldn't be 2021 without some mute issues. I am very fortunate to be working with a fantastic team during this really insane year and a bit that we've had. And we've been sort of wrestling with a bunch of questions, both in sort of how we are working together, what we're thinking about, and how we're engaging with the world as it's been changing and showing us a lot about different ways to live, different ways to relate to each other. And we developed a concept for a project that we called Expanding the Frame. And I'm sort of using that today to talk about our inspiration, which is sort of as a team, we are looking at how do we look farther outward? How do we expand what we're looking at and what we're thinking about? And most importantly, what are we learning from COVID and how do we translate that into design? So the first thing that I think we're all experiencing is we've been in this virtual existence for so long. And I remember the last big exhibition that I saw before we went into lockdown was in Milan at the Prada Foundation. And Wes Anderson and Juman Malouf made this incredible cabinet of curiosities with all of these objects and artifacts. And I think as we move forward into design, we're thinking about how with furniture, with objects, with information, we can really create these real experiences, but have them be driven by real objects, and how we move out of this virtual existence and into and sort of embracing the tactility of real, and also really ground ourselves in honesty and truth and fact and history. The fully digital world has kind of pulled us away from that. The next thing we've been thinking about a lot is embracing constraints. And I recently watched this, I discovered it for the first time, a Björk video that she made for MTV Unplugged back in the mid-90s. And she recorded many of the songs from her first album debut, which is a very electronic album. And it was all unplugged and all with a gamelan and other acoustic instruments. She sang Human Behavior accompanied by a harpsichord. And it made me think so much that we've had to deal with so many constraints. And it's made our design in this last year incredibly fruitful and exciting. And I want to take that energy forward and encourage everybody to think, just because constraints may be starting to be lifted, let's think creatively and economically and smartly about how we're working, using resources and honoring each other and using that to be quite creative. If you have seen this video of the fall-winter 2020 women's collection, it was called Ritual was the name of the show, the Gucci presentation. It's fantastic. And if you get a chance to watch it, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It moved me actually to tears. There is this large carousel and a turntable, and all the models are being dressed and made up as the turntable is spinning before the show starts, and you get to see that. But one of the things that's the most moving is that all of the people that work behind the scenes to make the clothes, to do hair and makeup, and to do the dressing, end the show by coming out and standing on the edge of this same carousel and being seen by the audience. And I think we've seen so much in this year, how there's been so much invisibility of people who have been helping us, holding us up, and doing all of the things that we do. Frontline workers, we've called them, or emergency workers. And it made us think that while we're working and collaborating with all these people that build our projects and all these people that make the elements, how can we showcase them? How can we bring them to the front? And how do we share both sort of the credit and the celebration for what we're making? And I think that'd be a really interesting way for us to move forward in interior design, to elevate and make visible all of the different people that make our projects so special. Another sort of thing along that idea is to really encourage co-creation. I watched, again, another video, the link is here. Dries Van Noten had an idea of doing a collection inspired by Christian Lacroix. And he was working on the ideas, and then he thought, you know, instead of paying homage, I'm really just knocking off his work. So he called him and he invited him to design the collection together. And I've been really excited about this idea that while we are reaching to find new expressions in design and to create new things and look at new points of inspiration, we could work with each other. and collaborate maybe in a more cross disciplinary and sort of cross-pollinating way. And that's just coming directly out of a experience that I've had in COVID of so many design firms, manufacturers, vendors reaching out to help each other. And there's just been incredible openness in the industry. And I think it would be amazing if that same professional openness and all that support could turn into actually a creative collaborative openness. Would be very exciting. And then I think sort of most importantly, what we've learned this year, we've always been doing design that tells stories, and we've always been building our designs around narratives and histories and bringing things to light. And there's been so much in this past year about decolonizing design, trying to break down the kind of the very sort of limiting nature and structure of what we do. And I think for us, we're excited about the idea of opening up to a sort of much broader palette of inspiration in what drives our design, what histories, what people, what muses, what creative output and time periods and cultures we look at to really create something that's new and different in the world. And obviously we have all the work that we're doing in different parts of our lives, but as designers telling stories, one of the easiest and sort of richest ways that we can start to help to transform the world and sort of broaden our scope is to center other stories and to look more broadly for our design inspiration. And sort of to go along with that, I'm just adding a few really great resources that we found and the people that we've been talking to about how do we look in other places? How do we foreground contributions of designers, creators, artists, people in culture that we would normally be looking in a more narrow channel? How do we sort of broaden that? And I've just included some of these to hopefully inspire the journey and to sort of share some information of things we found, because I think this is such a fertile time. And the more that we move outside of ourselves, but share that journey with each other, the more powerfully we can transform design. So I just want to thank you for inviting us to be part of this. And also to say, we look forward to working with everyone on expanding this frame and transforming design as we move forward, going into the next.
Thank you, Matt. So much good stuff there. Collaboration, credit, expanding our frame, so much to talk about at the end. So thank you so much. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Mishi, who is the Partner and Social Impact Officer at 7G Group, who just opened up the Hotel Rockaway, if you're in the New York area, which I think she's there now. So hi, Mish.
I am. Hi. Am I muted?
You're good. You're good.
Okay, great. So I'm Michi, and I'm the Partner and Chief Creative Social Impact Officer for the 7G Group, which, as Stacy mentioned, is an owner of the Rockaway Hotel. And I think it makes a little bit of sense for me to give you some background about my influences, because my role within the Rockaway Hotel is unique, and the project itself is a bit of a unicorn. So I'm going to focus a little bit on that, on how that creative jolt during the pandemic really was brought to me as a creative. In addition to my work at 7G, I'm also the president of Baxter Street at the Camera Club of New York, which is one of the longest standing nonprofit art organizations in New York City, with a history of over 135 years. And we support underrepresented emerging artists at a really critical time of their career, with the mission of creating a more equitable visual culture. So in curating over 40 shows in the last 10 years with the organization, it was very clear to us, and became very clear, the most successful shows and those with the most reach were those that were embraced by the artist's perspective and individual micro communities, what I like to call teacup empires. Now, these teacup empires within the contemporary art are what I assimilate with a current trend of hyper-localized branding, which is extremely, that comes off extremely authentic and is really about that community as a base. And it's very much driven by the socially conscious architectural design. And so this hyper-focalized is obviously something that's much more heightened right now in the face of the pandemic and our current state. People, they want to feel safe. We want to be close to home. They want beautiful, welcoming, comfortable design, but they want it with a soul, right? And when I say that I think, they want it with a soul, I feel like there's a trend of wanting to feel like you're contributing to something that's part of a bigger conversation of positive change right now. So with the project of the Rockaway Beach, it's a sliver of a peninsula over 2 miles wide where Queens, New York really meets the Atlantic Ocean. It's only 17 miles outside of New York City, but it feels literally a world away. The community has really historically been sequestered from the rest of New York City. And to be quite honest, it's been underrepresented in a larger conversation of public and social planning. So, which has really resulted in a strong sense of community and a magical alliance amongst the locals. So Teacup Empire. And it's a place where a mecca of creatives, culture, change makers, and year-round surf is a huge aspect of the culture here. So specifically with this project, it was super important that we had the gaining the trust of the community first. And as you can see in this photograph, this is the entryway of the hotel. And together with the Morris Adjemi architects, we approached this project not only from an eco-friendly directive, but they really took into consideration the historical arc of Rockaway Beach and used it for inspiration for a beautifully socially conscious designed hotel. And the hotel, although it's 80,000 square feet, it literally does, and has 53 rooms and 8 shows, but it doesn't tower over our neighbors, right? It doesn't tower over it, rather it gives them space. So here, as you see the entrance, the second floor is set back. But what you can't see are the businesses that are right across the street that have been there for generations. So instead of building up against them, we set it back intentionally, meant to maintain their light and allow for an extended visual plane that was met with balconies and green vegetation and windows. So right from the ground up, we were thinking of that. And the interiors are obviously, they highlight the duality, the magical duality of this inherent, urban beach, of being able to offer the guests with these amazing views of both the Atlantic Ocean and also the Jamaica Bay with a Manhattan skyline, which is always nice. And so Curious Yellow did the interior designs of this. And I thought that, their palettes were, they were really, they were playing off the layers of that urban beach as well, and that relaxed sophistication with the comfy layers and welcoming colors, which was reinforced by the curated art. So when I first came onto this project, I really believed that art is a connective tissue of any community. It can open up conversations, it can bridge designs, it can bridge divides. And I think right now, the creative jolts that will happen amongst the socially engaged artists is definitely a trend that will manifest across all creative aspects. But when I first started this project, I always joke that my superpower was that I'm not local, and that I came to the peninsula kind of waving my flag and asking questions. And I started to meet with all the local artists, which then led me to really get to know the people of the Rockaway community, the local business owners, activists, teachers, generation-long residents. And it became really apparent that Rockaway Beach was speaking up to all of these varied, sometimes polarized topics, and they were at the forefront of the rapidly changing world. So this Rockaway Beach Teacup Empire, as we say, was really, in so many ways, this micro scale of how grassroots efforts can have a great impact on social cohesion, which I think will be a huge trend coming out of this pandemic. So our first community project that we did when we were building the project, we partnered with our production fund in Fort Gansevoort, and we partnered with the school next door and taught them how to do graffiti with the artist Cess. And then we wrapped their graffiti around our scaffolding so that they felt like they were part of the project right from the beginning. And from there, it was really important that the art program was in the hotel was on par with all of our ethos. The lobby is curated with the idea that we want everybody to see themselves there. Consciously placing the art with diverse makers and subjects was at the forefront of my process. So it could really become like that neighborhood living room that was mentioned earlier too, as well as an international destination. I've curated the property with local and international artists, drawing on themes from the community, like surf, the local botanicals through some of those, through some of the sculptures. And we have custom lights by Sam Stewart, commissioned artworks from Zoe Buckman, Hannah Winokur, and Kennedy Yanko, and also some by Herbie Fletcher and Tom Sachs. So when we first got opened up in Labor Day, we were able to kind of have these outreaches into the community right away with a virtual art installation, which is an augmented reality Liberty Bell project, which we partnered with the Rockaway Beach Conservancy and also the Art Production Fund to host this, that launched on July 4th. We also, were the host of the MoMA PS1 warm-up, and were able to provide that for the community. When everything was shut down, we were able to project it out onto the street. So people literally had like a dance party on the street. And it was really amazing to be able to kind of bring everybody together in a safe way. And then beyond that, I've been working with Chantel Martin, who did a 16,000 square foot mural next on the blacktop in Rockaway, which is adjacent to the hotel. And it was a partnership with the school next door, where she did an educational program as well. So once we think about beyond the arts, it's really important that we answer all the other questions of the community as well, thinking of that localized trust that's really necessary to have that authentic brand. And so we've partnered with the Campaign Against Hunger, and we're building out a 2-acre farm in Far Rockaway. Our pool is amazing to not only relax at, but we're also running a swim initiative out of the pool, which is going to be launching again this summer. And it's in partnership with Rising Tide Effect and Imagine Swim and the Swim Strong Foundation. So the Rockaway Hotel is going to be having an ocean ready program at using our pool for the community members. So all that to be said, I'll just finish up by saying that, before we opened the doors to the hotel, and I know I kind of focused on one project here, we were asked by the New York Times if it was a good time to open a hotel. And of course, it's not a good time to open a hotel during a pandemic. I definitely don't necessarily think that is recommended, but sometimes you have to do things. And so we pushed forward, and for this Teacup Empire of Rockaway Beach, it was the silver lining. We were able to open up for the locals who needed a safe space to gather and bring this gem of a place for a weekend urban getaway for the tri-state area. So those are the projects that I worked in, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Meech. And I'm totally stealing Teacup Empire at some point. I love that term. It's amazing. Okay, so last but definitely not least is Mavis Wiggins, who, as I said, is the Managing Executive and Studio Creative Director for TPG Architecture. Mavis, I will turn it over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. Can you see me?
No, we can't see you. Can you turn on your camera? Oh, there we go.
Okay, here I am.
Yep.
All right. So this is amazing. These presentations and these thought processes are really inspiring. I happen to be the studio creative director of one of the workplace studios at TPG. And so my presentation is going to focus a little bit more on a corporate situation, not so much hospitality, but hospitality spans all areas these days. And so I think I chose a project that I think really does start to describe some of these concepts and things like that we're seeing today. Our primary work is workplace, but we also have a host of different talents that we bring to the table, and hospitality is one of them. We have a hospitality studio, we have retail banking, we have preservation, lighting, international architecture, healthcare, all under one roof. We are a 41-year-old firm. The 4 founding partners are still working actively within the group, which keeps it really pretty amazing and energetic. And, we've really seen changes happen over this last year that, as many of you touched on, I'm hoping it's optimistic and it's going to lead to a better place. And one of the things we're seeing in our corporate world is the spectrum is very wide-based. We have people that are saying they're going to return 100% back to the workplace, and others that are saying they're going to work 100% remotely, because it has been a very, very intricate year, and we've seen a lot of change. And we're not really actually sure where this is going to lead, but I am optimistic that it's going to lead to a better place, better ideas, better thinking, more collaboration, innovation, and all of the more positive aspects, health and well-being. We've just learned a lot about each other over the last year, and the world, actually. I think diversity, equity, inclusion is a big topic, and I don't think it's one of these ones that's going to be a trend that's just going to disappear and point. I think it's definitely here to stay. I think everybody realizes now that the more that you bring to the table, the more diversity, the more inclusion that really represents the world as we see it, the better the ideas, the better the product and the end result. So I think in the end, it's all going to be, much more positive. So I like the idea of the industries coming together and collaborating, whether you're in hospitality or in corporate, it's all sort of starting to blend now. And I think the big picture concepts, the ideas of creating more outdoor space for people, creating healthier environments, creating a reason to return to the workplace because we miss each other, and we know that we learn from each other, and that mentorship opportunity, which is just very difficult to establish over, virtually. And so I am hopeful that the workplace will return. It will not look the same, but it will be something that still nourishes ideas and gets people's thought processes going and becomes much more positive. And again, like I said, health and well-being will be in the forefront. So I chose to present one project that I thought, even though it is pre-COVID, it was a pre-COVID project, it incorporates a lot of these kind of concepts that we described. Am I just hitting slide to advance it?
Yep, slides are next. I can advance it for you too if you want. Here you go. There we go.
Why don't we do this? So this is Iex Group, and it's actually a stock exchange, and it's in 3 World Trade Center. And they came to us because they are a company that really is about transparency in the work. And if you move to the next slide, there was a book that was written about this company, and it was really based on Brad Katsuyama, who's the CEO of Iex Group. And Michael Lewis wrote this book about them because of the fact that they were trying to do something different and create transparency and honesty within this market. And the mission was to build fairer markets through transparent and straightforward operations. And that's kind of unheard of on Wall Street. So we were all automatically very excited to work with them and to have a company that had such strong ethos. And so we can keep going, and I'll walk you through some of the. So from the beginning, it was a very, very collaborative process, as most of our projects are, but they were completely hands-on and very engaged. And so we had several interview processes and group sessions where we really tried to uncover, where were the things that were going wrong with the space that they were in prior and how we could correct that. Next slide, please. And then there was a whole discussion about the improvements for the future. And so these were things that were kind of the mantra that set the tone for the project. It was really interesting to have a company that had such a clear identity about where they wanted to take their business, that it really set the table for us in terms of the design aesthetic and the approach, the planning approach. Everything that we did with them was based on their ethos. And just to go through some of the process, we get things in front of them. We want to get the executive vision front and center and to make sure that we hit the target right. So we started putting images in front, talking about the look and feel of the space, just to get a sense of what direction we should be going in and if it was the right direction for them. There was tangible tech, there was intangible tech. We wanted to know if it was more about materiality, and the brightness and open to the views. If you've ever been in 3 World Trade Center, it's very, very special sense of place in terms of the views and the light. That it was about getting the executive vision up front, putting together the materials and things like that, with the bottom line being we had to create an environment that really supported their culture. And also the idea that they were really so committed to this transparent operation. So the floor plan you can see is almost 100% open plan. The idea is they wanted to be able to see people across the floor. They really believe that mentorship happens by connectivity. They also were very much interested, and we help them with this, create these very open spaces where you can have chance encounters, town halls, people, get together, the whole staff can get together and have lunch, that just to build that corporate community was really important. And then we created, some views for them because it was very collaborative. We want to make sure that everyone is really on board with where we're going. With the design aesthetic. And the design aesthetic was completely transparent, not only in no obstacles across the floor, but also the ceiling panels were expanded metal mesh. It created a lot of opportunities for us to work really closely with the MEP engineers at the beginning and really create an end result that really celebrated their mission. You can see it's very, very open here. They can have themes. Now this is kind of the back of house space, but every area had to be considered for their staff. The reception area, branding was very important for them. But these expanses of spaces, where people can just flow very easily throughout the floor and meet in the open or meet in meeting rooms. We're hearing a lot about our clients are very much interested in adaptability, mobility, flexibility, and agility. And so we try to incorporate that into these spaces. And so even though it's pre-COVID, a lot of this is really very relevant in a post-COVID world. This is a shot of their server room, their commitment to transparency. Their server room is right in the reception area. And it's completely a glass box enclosure. And then we created these large living rooms where, people can sit and work. They have alternative workplaces, but it also has this hospitality and welcoming feel. And it also will allow them to densify if they need to, just by moving furniture. And that's a kind of group, lunchroom where the area can get together. It's also acts as a boardroom or training room for them. But it allows the large groups to really gather. And again, it's all about community building. This is one of the few office/meeting rooms, again, allowing them some flexibility there. Their ceremonial bell ringing area. But I think what they really liked about it was the fact that we didn't get in the way. We really just tried to support their culture and create an environment that really met their needs and their philosophy. So I really look forward to, again, I think expanding our collaborative opportunities amongst even our own field and industry. I think sometimes the best products come out of, people coming from different backgrounds and coming together to pull something unique and different together that's special and I think with what we've all gone through, I think we're going to come up with some more innovative ideas. And it's just, I see it as a positive, and I'm really looking forward to the future.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Such a different but all inspiring presentation. So I just quick thanks to all our panelists. So let's dive into some questions. We have only 12 minutes. So there's lots that I want to kind of riff off of. First, I thought maybe we just do a lightning round because I feel like there are a lot of similar topics that you all discussed that we could kind of dive deeper into. And one of the questions, maybe this can kick us off a little bit, is from the audience and asking about how can corporate institutions or offices like what Mavis just showed, or maybe others that you are working on, hybrid spaces, what can we learn or be that have been affected by the work from home changes be adapted to accommodate these new paradigms and work habits? Anyone? Matt, you want to give your 2 cents? Maybe in co-working or, what are you seeing? What are you paying attention to?
Sure. I mean, I think one thing that's interesting, I'm speaking to you now from Miami, where I'm on site for a model room review. And I think one thing that's interesting is the ability to go to the project and the place of the project, which is obviously a little bit challenging right now with some travel restrictions. But that's something I've really learned in this, I think, going forward. It's like we've been trained to be very disciplined with our time and be in our offices and sort of communicate. And I think actually there's a much more open design process that could happen now where we realize we can maintain working from anywhere, as Christine mentioned, and we can do that actually within the projects too and live a little bit more on our sites and with our jobs as we're developing them, or immerse ourselves in the place that we're working while continuing to be connected to each other, to our teams, and to the rest of the work that we're doing. So I think that's something I really learned, like, I don't have to be sitting behind my desk to be the most productive, actually being around in the world, connecting the design better, the collaboration better, and the communication better. It's a great lesson.
Exactly. Okay. Anyone have anything else to add? If not, the one thing too that I wanted, the overall focus on wellness, right? I think that is something that will continue. And Christine, you mentioned it. I know, Michi, you have a lot of different programs at the Rockaway Hotel. Where do you think that's headed in your various spaces? How are you thinking about that as more of a, maybe not like a gym in your room, but more about that holistic thought process, or, from beginning to end of traveling?
I don't think that it is, again, about it's not a vanity thing anymore. I love the idea of sport I've always seen that trend in hospitality, that we could get there, not about a gym or a fitness hotel per se, but really the idea of experiencing something new or learning something new. You know, it's not, when you say well-being, that type of activity, it's really good for your mind too, and it keeps you nimble, keeps you learning forward, and keeps you excited. And just to reiterate Matthew's sentiment, you know, getting out there and seeing things in the world and trying new things keeps you creative.
For sure. And I think part of that too is what you all touched upon is, you know, design for all. How are you all thinking about including, you know, champion diversity and equity and inclusion into your work?
I think you need to just open up the topic. You know, it needs to be, and it has been discussed more and more. I think that the world is diverse, and I think that we haven't given that enough attention in our own fields. And so I think it's important to really kind of understand that it only makes the process better if you can be more inclusive. And that means bringing more people to the table, you know, giving people more opportunity to weigh in and be a part of the process. And I think it can only make things better. So I think that's really a good point. It's interesting how we were talking about opening things up too for, I had got a statistic recently that cruise ships are all booked the next few years. I think that that's really an interesting concept because, you know, you wouldn't think that that would be the case under the circumstances because of what we saw that happened when people got, you know, were on cruise ships and weren't able to leave. But it is really an indication of how much we need to be away from our computers and back out there and experiencing travel and other things again. So I think that people are really, as much as we've worked successfully remotely, I think that that need to be with each other is very strong. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see how that affects the workplace and what the workplace really is going to look like, because it's really going to be about enticing people back to the office for all those reasons, right? For that sense of wanting to interact with someone face to face as opposed to over a Zoom. So I think we'll be seeing more of that kind of change in the workplace.
I think overall, I mean, travel will mean more, being back together will mean more. I think they'll just, you know, we're working on a story for our April issue about meaningful travel. And, you know, people will choose places that cruise ships are one of them, you know, give them an experience that they're looking for, but, you know, also places that really are, you know, connected to the community that, you know, that might be able to give back in a way that might offer something remote that they've never done, you know, speaking to what Christine said about auto camp, you know, really diving into an experience depending on what they're looking for. I don't know if you all agree.
Yeah, and I think that it's going to be very quick that we'll have that back to full swing. And one of the things that I want to be cognizant of is maintaining some sort of pause as well within the creative process, because I think that this whole pandemic obviously has been an extended pause that is a little bit debilitating, but at the same time, it's allowed us in some ways to take a break from some of the distractions that are also common in our industries, whether it's, you know, dinners and all of those things, which are fabulous. But, you know, I want to re-enter in a more considered way in that spending my time in a very considered way, especially with, you know, family work-life balance. I think that's going to be a huge thing moving forward. All of us working from home from this. So I think as we reopen, that will be something that we'll see. There'll be a social hesitancy for some people.
Right. I think as we learned that we could be connected, in different ways if we're not, I mean, I miss traveling, but like how much work you get done without having to run for 8 eight flights in like 4 days is kind of amazing. But no, I totally agree. That it is kind of nice to take a step back. How has your creative process changed by taking a step back, or has it? Or have you found new ways to be creative?
For me, I feel like disruption is inherent in my work. Like I think interruptions are sort of when I start to think again. So it's like I almost look for them now. So for the last year, it's like now I have a burst of productivity, and then my 3-year-old daughter comes in and interrupts me, and I have to then re-engage. And when I re-engage, I'm very thoughtful about that re-engagement of where I am. And what I remember when I start again is usually what really needs to bubble to the top anyway. So I've been, I think that interruption is something that's been, I don't know, I'm welcoming it now, but then I also, we'll see how it goes, but it's
re-enter the quote unquote. No,
there's a reason why I'm at the hotel, so I don't have her in the background Zoom bombing me right now.
She's very cute. Rose is very
I
cute.
agree. I welcome it. Actually, when I look at, my cat walking in front of the screen, or kids running around in the background, or getting, and everybody has a puppy now, and and it really is kind of it makes it all so humanistic, and you just kind of remember what it's like. It reminds me of when we had a blackout before, and in Brooklyn, and everybody just kind of took to the street and started talking to each other. And it was like we hadn't really been doing that because we've been so preoccupied with our lives that you just see people in passing. But this has allowed us again to reconnect in a different kind of way that I think is really kind of healthy in a way,
Right. We're getting lots of thank yous from the audience. Sorry, I thought there were questions. Okay, one last question because we have 2 minutes. On this lightning round, what do you think about how this will also have an effect on the environment, or you have an option, or tech and automation? So Christine, I'm going to turn to you.
Tech and automation, I think, look, there's a place, but I do think that to, reiterate that sentiment of hospitality, it is that human connection. It is meeting people. It is that real contact and interaction. That's what makes a great hotel. It's not the design. It's not really what we all do. It's the people that work there that are involved in that community. So I defer to the old school idea of service.
I can't agree more. I think that some things won't change, and every day we're putting menus back on the table. When we put a QR code, people are like, what? I want to just hold the menu for a moment, and we wipe it down each time. But it's like, there is people want to hold things in their hands still. And there are going to be things that we realize are just human nature of connectivity, and we're social beings. And I couldn't agree more, Christine.
And I think, Matt, what you touched upon too about elevating the people behind the scenes, I think that has to do with the people that work at the hotel or the restaurant for sure, but also, your collaborators, right? That are often the people that go unnoticed, but don't get the same recognition as others.
Exactly. I mean, I think this year has given us, we've had to work in different ways. We've also become so aware of all the people that make our lives possible, especially during sort of lockdown and pandemic. But I think that we should turn that, and have been turning that energy, into hospitality field and design field, and think about that too, right? There's thousands of people involved in making any project work or making a hotel or a restaurant operate smoothly. And it's time to shine some light on everybody. And I think our industry, and just, in general, there's sort of cult of personality, and, we tend to try to put one person at the top of things. But I think this year for me has really shown me how important all the people that make things work are, all the way through, how we do it as a community.
And we found that even within our own organization, that we always appreciated the people, but now we have a new appreciation for the people that really keep this thing going, the backbone of the company, really. And you're right, it kind of is a unifying thing, and it's got to be positive.
Yeah. And I always say that we've gone from managing or having teams to having individuals, right? And that like we've learned so much about the people around us in a different way. There is silver linings to pandemic. So, let's leave it at that. But I can't thank you all enough. If you want to know more about these incredible humans, here are their websites to take a look at. And if you want to share this, you can access this live stream on demand by visiting the Hospitality Design website tomorrow, or by using the link that brought you here. It will be live just 5 minutes after we end. And if you want more inspiration, I will be live tomorrow on Instagram with designer Celery Kemble, who is talking about the new Mayflower Hotel renovation, which is, I just saw it in person. It is one not to miss. And then for our next live stream, I'm hosting HD Preview Virtual Conference, May 4th and 5th, 10 sessions, all free. Head to hdexpo.com or hospitalitydesign.com to get all the info. And thanks again to our amazing speakers, and see you all again soon. Stay safe and be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.